I'm going for the Amud, and I need to be in Mincha Ma'ariv on my toes. So in the next few weeks, until it aligns again with the timing, we're going to do it at 8:45 after the rabbi, and eventually, when the time is right, we'll switch back. I just can't afford not to be in Mincha Ma'ariv where I need to be. So thank you for understanding. So we are studying the book of Shmuel, and it's one of the most interesting and most discussed stories of the Tanakh, and that is the story of David and Bat Sheva. Last time we got a pretty good intro to Bat Sheva and her grandfather Achitophel and her husband Uriah Hachiti and who they were. And we're going to weave some of that information into what we're going to be discussing today. And we're going to cover today, hopefully, the essence of the story and exactly what, try to understand what went through David's mind when he was doing what he was doing. So David, we're meeting David right now. He's at the ripe age of 57. Close to 60. He's going to live for another 13 years until the age of 70. And he still, despite of the fact that he has a bunch of kids, 18 kids or whatever, a bunch of kids, he didn't find the heir to the throne. God promised him a few chapters ago that his house is going to forever rule over the Jewish people, and he's looking for the right guy, for the right person. He feels that this is the time, and we can actually. He's not going to build the Bet HaMikdash, but his son will, and hopefully he's going to be the Mashiach as well, because we know that the Mashiach is coming from the house of David. And this is what God promised him. So he felt that he, with the right guys and the right way of handling it, he's going to make sure that happens right now. So he's not happy with the fact that he didn't find the right heir, the right son, and he sort of blames it in his mind that he didn't find the right woman, the right person. The DNA, he knows his DNA, but he did not find his match to have the heir to the throne. And then Vayila et Erev, and then he's walks around on the roof of his house in the late afternoon, early evening. Vayakem ma'al mishkavo. He stood up. He wasn't. He was turned night to day and day to night. For we discussed the reasons last time. But he woke up late, and he would learn all night. It's not that he was sleeping for 20 hours. He would learn all night and do do what kings do, what David HaMelech does at night. And so in the evening, Vaitalech al gag Beit HaMelech, he was walking around the roof of his palace. Vayar isha rochetzet ma'al hagag, va'isha tovat mareh me'od. And he saw that woman washing around. She was preparing to go to the mikveh. She was washing herself in order to be able to get purified in the mikveh. And she was very, very, very pretty. The way the Midrash is saying that she was hiding behind some sort of a big dish of sorts. One of those you have those kiddie pools that are big and made out of plastic. So it wasn't made out of plastic, but made out of some metal or something. And it was covering her, or she was hiding behind it, because she was aware of the fact that she was a very modest person. She was a very special woman. We know that the whole chapter of the whole story of Eshet Chal Mi'imtza, which we say every Shabbos, every Friday night, is told by Shlomo Melech, King Shlomo, King Solomon, about her. So she is the Eshet Chal. She is the model Jewish woman. So she was hiding behind that, and then so it goes that there was this malach, the Yetzer Hara, or the angel that's causing trouble, that's sent by God to cause trouble and to test people. Decided he needs to get this cover off. So he was flying back and forth in front of David HaMelech, and sort of fooling him a little bit and drawing him to draw his bow and arrow and try to kill that bird because it was buzzing back and forth. So that's what he did, David HaMelech. He drew he was a warrior. He always had weapons around. He knew how to use them very well, as we know from Goliath's story and some other wars, glorious wars that he was winning. So he took the arrow, the bow and arrow, and shot that bird. Now that bird was an angel, so the bird sort of jumped and didn't get hurt, but the arrow was hitting that dish or whatever she was hiding behind, and broke it into two, and that's how she found herself exposed. So it was a series of events that all seem very logical and very innocent, but the end result was all a manufactured test by Hashem, and it's two things. It was a test for him, but it also was an introduction to his wife, to the wife that will give him King Melech Shlomo, right? God needed to create this kind of connection between them. So obviously God has his the Almighty. He could have done it in many different ways, but he chose to also weave into it the biggest test of David's life. So he saw her, and he right away felt that she is the one. I guess love at first sight, that's what we interpreted it as. By him it was more spiritual and more of a, he saw through the soul of the person, was able to understand who is he seeing. So that's what he felt. So he right away, David is, as we know, a man of deeds. He's doing things. He's not the one to sit back and wait and think what to do and not sure. He is very sure of what he's supposed to do. So he right away sends one person very quietly to figure out who that woman is. Vayishlach David vayidrosh laisha. He was basically asking around who she is and who is who is she come from, and the information came to him that she is the granddaughter of Achitophel, who he knew very well, who was one of his advisors, one of the smartest people alive at that time, a man that was part of the Beis Din, of the Sanhedrin. He knew the family is good. Vayomer, alozot Bat Sheva bat Eliam eshet Uriah Hiti. So the person who he was asking to go ask around who that person is came back and says, what do you mean who this is? This is Bat Sheva, the daughter of Eliam. Eliav was the son of Achitophel, and she is the wife of Uriah Hiti. Now, Uriah Hiti, as we just briefly, was one of the warriors, one of the heroes that was leading the charge, that was leading the army, was part of the Giborei David, the heroes of David HaMelech. He was the ex-Kadi of Goliath. He was helping Goliath schlep his swords and his weaponry. And when he saw what happened to Goliath, he converted, basically started his conversion process, and he came to our side, and now he was married to this very young. Bat Sheva at the time was very, very young, way below 8 years old. She was very young, and he was married to her. Slated, I guess, that was an agreement that eventually they're going to live like a husband and wife. But she was too young, or he, they didn't work together. So for now, he was just on paper, so to speak, married to her, and he is not around. He's not home. The time of the year, so we know that David was 59. What is the time of the year? The time of the year is a week before Rosh Hashanah. It's a week before Rosh Hashanah, and her husband, Uriah Hitti, 3.5 months ago, was sent with the rest of the Israeli army to Ammon, to Jordan, modern day Jordan, to punish the Ammonites for their behavior and their shaming of a group of people that David HaMelech sent to them. So they were, Uriah Hitti with all of the other heroes were surrounding the city for 3.5 months now, and trying to sort of let them bleed to death, or use their supplies and become weak. So as long as they can hold the matzor, the siege, then there is no sense in fighting and losing casualties. So Uriah Hitti was there. Now, what we also know is that all of those soldiers gave a get to a divorce paper to their wives. Whether it was a complete get or it was a conditional get, that's a discussion we mentioned last time. But the bottom line is, if the person is not coming back, the woman is totally not not married to him anymore. And at this point, Bat Sheva married to him officially, got a divorce from him before he went to battle, but she never had a relationship with him yet. She was just I guess waiting for him to come back and to have and to live again like a husband and wife. And the common law, or the common custom was that once the soldiers would come back, they would remarry the woman and tear down the get and invalidate it, and the woman will come back, the spouse will come back to be their wife. So he knew exactly where everybody is, and Bat Sheva was not married at the moment. Then she was officially divorced. Although and that was one of the things that he was criticized about. Wasn't common that someone who went to war and his wife is officially divorced gonna go and marry someone else. It wasn't common. It was possible. It was done from time to time, but it definitely was not common. And people didn't. Soldiers would not feel comfortable going and fighting if they know that they come back to a broken home. So after David HaMelech sent this one person to find out who she was. Now that he knows who she was, he sent a group of people in order to ask her to come over and be with him. Vayishlach David malachim. So now it's a little more public. Not so public, but not one person quietly. Vayikachea vatavo elav. So he sent malachim, angels, messengers to take her, but she actually came on her own volition. She was trapped in a bad marriage. That's how she felt. And the marriage with Uriah Hitti was not going well. They didn't have a relationship yet. They didn't have no babies, no possibility for babies at the moment. And she didn't like where she was stuck. And we will see soon, and this is part of what is not being mentioned when people, take apart the story and criticize David, too much. Nobody is talking about the fact, or it's not common to talk about the fact that Uriah Hitti was acting like a real piece of work. So we'll see what happens with him. So David HaMelech asked her to come, and she agreed, and she came, Vayishkav ima, and they slept together. Vehi mitkadeshet mitumata. So the prophet is mentioning that she was actually ready to go. She just went to the mikveh, and she was, purified herself. So she was in a condition that's allowed to have a sexual relationship. Vatashev al beita. But after that, she went back home. So what happened here? What happened here is that David HaMelech felt very strongly that she is the one. He felt very strongly, I guess, attracted to her. And they had a relationship, but not the relationship of a husband and wife. It's more a relationship of a concubine, a pilegesh. Later on, he will convert, he will change that. Once Uriah Hitti died, was killed, she will become an official wife. But there was a status, and we spoke about it several months ago, that in those days there was a in-between status of someone who's married and not married, and in between is a pilegesh, where she's attached but not fully. She doesn't have any obligations, and she doesn't have any benefits of being a wife, but she has the connection to that man. Again, we discussed it several times before. So she was at that moment a pilegesh, and therefore David HaMelech decided that after they slept together, she should go back home. And she went back home, and sort of to see what will be. He wasn't clear as to how to proceed, which is not like David HaMelech, and that's where we know it was a test. It was something that he usually did not have to deal with, this kind of uncertainty or questionable situation. A month passed by, or a little less than that. Vatara Isha. So she became pregnant from that one encounter. Vatishlach vatagelet David vatomer hara anochi. So she told him, I'm pregnant. And at that point, we have a super duper scandal on our hand. Okay? Because David HaMelech, this Uriah Hitti is a soldier that went to the war, under the flag of David HaMelech, and now she's not a wife. She's not his wife, but she's was a wife and about to be again when he comes back. And she was taken by the king. Not at all what David HaMelech wanted to have. He didn't want that, news to spread that way. That wasn't the intention. He was stuck. Okay, she was pregnant. He was stuck. We heard that kind of a situation a lot. What do you do? So David HaMelech right away must devise a plan. And his first inclination is, first of all, let's get her, Uriah Hitti, the husband, let's get him here and let's see what happens. I mean, first of all, let's make sure that he's in town, that he's at home, that he's living with her. So at least there is a possibility of saying maybe it was his child. Maybe he's going to agree to divorce her. We'll see, but let's get him here because that's numero uno. We need the husband to be around here. Vaishlach David el Yoav shlach elai et Uriah Hitti. Please send me Uriah Hitti. So Yoav is the general who is the head of the army, and if someone needs a pass, he needs to approve it. So David HaMelech sends to Yoav, please send over Uriah Hitti. Vaishlach Yoav et Uriah el David. So Yoav summons Uriah and tells him go back to David HaMelech. Now where is he coming from? if you imagine Yerushalayim and Rabat Amon, which is the capital city of Jordan nowadays. So that's the distance, basically. Rabat Amon, that's where the siege was, and Yerushalayim, this is where David and Bat Sheva were. So it's not far, it's a day, it may be 2 days of riding on a horse and getting from one place to the other. So very quickly Uriah Hitti arrived there. So can imagine that it was in the middle of Tishrei, when she realized that she's pregnant, about 4 months and change since Uriah left. Now, what does a soldier who is summoned to the king, to the White House, to the palace, or wherever that, Versailles, wherever that is, what does the soldier do before they show up? Typically they would shower, they would dress with their best, uniform. They will show up to the king like you need to show up to a king. Turns out that Uriah did not have any respect for David HaMelech. Everybody is not really sure why. But the fact is, from the words we see, that he totally did not have respect for him. Now, it's highly unlikely that he knew what David HaMelech did, because David HaMelech made sure not to do it in public. So some said maybe some rumor came to him, but it didn't make sense because it just happened very quickly, and he just came from the war. He wasn't even in the city, and he right away was acting disgusting towards the king, which, by the way, would be the justification to get rid of him, because you cannot be desecrating the honor of the king. It's called mored b'malchut. It's rebelling against the king. You cannot act like that. This is not okay at all. And the only problem was that David HaMelech didn't take him to Beis Din, to the court, and told him, hey, this guy was desecrating the honor of the king. He should die, and they would sentence him to death. And instead, he did it in a roundabout way. That's the biggest criticism that David had in this whole situation. But anyway, that's later. Vayavo Uriah elav, so Uriah shows up. Yoav summons him, so Uriah shows up. Vayish'al David lishlom Yoav, v'lishlom ha'am, v'lishlom ha'milchama. So when he comes in front of David HaMelech makes small talk and ask him sincerely, want to know, how is Yoav doing? Yoav, the nephew who is leading the war, and how is the nation, meaning all of the army that's there, the troops, and how is the war going? He's one of the top soldiers. He's not, he's not peeling potatoes in the kitchen. He's one of the soldiers in the front line. He knew the latest intelligence, so he was asking him, so how's the war going? So that's what, again, he did not want to alert or alarm Uriah, at all. And then he tells him a key instruction. Vayomer David leUriah, red lebetcha urchatz reglecha. He tells Uriah, listen, he's not telling him why he asked him to come here, but it's the privilege and prerogative of the king to, summon whoever he wants and ask him to do whatever he wants, basically, as long as it's not against the law. And it wasn't against the law to ask a soldier to come over. And then he tells him, listen, go home, wash your feet, just just take a shower and get yourself organized. You weren't home for 4 months. You didn't see your wife for 4 months. Vayetze Uriah mibet hamelech, vatetse acharav mas'at hamelech. So the custom in those days was that any soldier who would come, any VA, right, who would come from the war, would get a nice gift from the king, from the king's treasure, as appreciation for carrying out the king's instructions and going to war. So when Uriah shows up after serving for 4 months in the battlefield, in the front line, he got Masat HaMelech, he got the gift, the present the king would give. So those people who would carry the present that the king gave him, and they told him something not very difficult. Listen, go home, take a shower, see your wife, be with her, just go home. That's what the king ordered him to do. What does Uriah do? He is totally disenchanted with his wife, disenchanted with his house, disenchanted with his home and with his family. He does not want to go home, which is very strange. What kind of a soldier you see that come back from a front line all dirty and and he's getting permission, he's getting an order to go home, and he doesn't go home. Very, very strange behavior. Totally nicht normal, You don't see this kind of thing. So what does he do, Uriah? He refuses to listen to the king, which is his second infraction. So first of all, he showed up to the king without thinking, not presentable. And then when the king told him to do something and gave him his portion, his gift, he just, doesn't listen at all. Vayishkav Uriah petach beit hamelech. He lies down at the entrance of the king's house of the palace. Et kol avdei adonav velo yarad el beto. Together with all of the servants, with the other officers, the other servants of David HaMelech, of his master, right? And he did not go home. They did not have a wonderful marriage. Uriah and Bat Sheva had a terrible, terrible marriage. He did not want... Now, the rabbis are talking about, besides the fact that, it's apparent that they didn't have a good marriage, and, he wasn't really waiting to see his wife and get her back. He also was making a financial decision. He was making in those days and nowadays as well, a get is an expensive event. Okay, to write a get, divorce papers, it costs, even if you go to to Newark, it's $199, right? But divorce is an expensive thing, and you need to get a very specific parchment and a very specific sofer. It costs money to write a get and to give it the proper way with witnesses. It's not cheap. And what would happen is that if he would step foot at home and would be with his wife, that divorce papers that he gave her conditionally would be invalidated. And then the next morning he needs to go back to the front line, he will need to go look for a scribe and witnesses and pay the money, the fee, and get another get going, because he was not allowed to join the army back without a get. So he's thinking, don't like her anyway. Why would I spend another, $200 on another get if I don't have to? So he stays around the palace. Now we know from the fact that where was his home? I shot, to the palace, because David HaMelech was on the roof and was looking and seeing her taking a bath on her roof, behind something. So he was very close. Couldn't have been more than a few steps away, but he decided he ain't going there. Now, when that happens, that's the talk of the town. So now everybody knows that Uriah really doesn't like David, doesn't like Bat Sheva. There is something very, fishy over there, not right. But so David sent the gift that he gave every soldier with Uriah as Uriah left the room that he was seeing David in, And so those people, and that person who gave the gift thought, here, he'll give the gift to Uriah, and Uriah will just walk to his house. And he just made a beeline and, was lying down around the entrance to the palace with the other servant, with other officers. So ויגידו לדוד, so they right away go and they tell David HaMelech לאמור, לא ירד אוריה אל ביתו. So they knew that David HaMelech sent Uriah home, and Uriah did not go to his house. So then, now David have cause. Yeah, and now the problem is bigger because something needs to be done, and she's pregnant from someone, and Uriah did not go home. So now it's a real mess. So ויאמר דוד אל אוריה, הלא מדרך אתה בא, מדוע לא ירדת אל ביתך? David HaMelech is trying his hardest to really steer Uriah to do what he wants him to do, which is go home and be with his wife. And so he calls him again. After leaving the audience with the king, going out, he was told that David HaMelech was told that Uriah is not going. So he called him back and told David told Uriah, you're coming from the road. Why didn't you go home? Why did you go down to your house? I mean, that's weird, man. It doesn't make any sense. So when the king tells you second time and comes especially to tell you again to do that, any person with half a brain would just do it. I mean, what you have a lot more to lose if you're going to rebel against the king than if you're going to go home and have a nice dinner with your wife, right? It makes no sense. But Uriah could not. He has so much disdain to his wife and to David, for that matter. Vayomer Uriah David, so he's answering him. Wow. David HaMelech, imagine David HaMelech is in, you're talking to him one-on-one and he's telling you to do something and you're arguing. I mean, crazy. Vayomer Uriah David, Haaron וישראל ויהודה יושבים בסוכות, ואדוני יואב ועבדי אדוני על פני השדה חונים, ואני אבוא אל ביתי לאכול ולשתות ולשכב עם אשתי. חייך וחיי נפשך מעשה את הדבר הזה. Let me translate every piece because there's a lot here. Basically, all of the soldiers are in the war and they are sleeping in the field in huts and I'm going to go have fun, eat and drink and sleep with my wife. How dare you? He tells him, and he swears in the name of David HaMelech, and in the name, and in his life, my life, I'm not going, I'm not going there, because it will be a shame to desecrate the honor of my fellow soldiers, my fellow Marines, they're in a war and I'm going and having fun. No, Mr. King. He wasn't swearing. I'm sorry. Yeah, he wasn't swearing on his life. He was swearing on David's life, which is you don't do that to a king. That's a big no. You don't swear in the life of the king, because the king very quickly turn around and turn the table around. Now, what he's saying is basically, and this is another point that we mentioned several times before, is this, there were two arks that were holy. There was the Ark of the Covenant, the main one, that was built by Bezalel, and that ark had the second tablets and a Sefer Torah, and it was in the Holy of Holies, and it was the main ark. And that ark usually did not leave the Holy of Holies ever. The only time that he left the Holy of Holies and went somewhere it shouldn't have gone, it's when they took that ark in the war against the Philistines at the time of Eli. Okay? And that's when the Philistines took the ark, captured the ark, and took it away, and it was in captivity for 7 months, and a lot of trouble came to it, as we know, as we learn a lot of trouble came to the Jews from it. So that ark did not go. So what ark is he talking about here? Which ark is saying that went to war? This is the ark that Moshe built. It took time from the time that we got the first tablets till the time that the second tablets came and that we built the Bet HaMikdash, till the time we built the Mishkan. There was several, there was 6 months or so. We got the second tablets in Yom Kippur, right? And the Mishkan was built in Nisan, right? So what happened? Where were the tablets until then? In long-term storage. What did they do with it? So Moshe Rabbeinu built quickly an ark, a box, to house both the broken first tablets and the tablets themselves. Now some say that he built the ark for the broken tablets, so that's 40 days before that. In any event, Moshe Rabbeinu built another ark, and in that ark, typically what was stored is the broken tablets. So you had one ark with the broken tablets and another ark with the full tablets. Later on, the ark of Moshe Rabbeinu was put in archives, and the broken tablets were added to the main ark. So, and again, there is a whole discussion amongst the rabbis and the commentaries about the sizes, the size of the ark and the size of the inside of the ark and the size of the tablets and how much will fit. 1 set, 2 sets. It's a whole discussion. We're not going to go into it right now. We did spend couple of sessions on it a while back. But the bottom line is that one ark, and it's likely the ark of Moshe, the ark that was sort of demoted or became the second in command ark, was taken as a matter of practice, a matter of course, was taken to wars. Not to every war, to the hard wars, to the wars that were difficult, in order for the ark to pave the way. So that ark was parked with all of the soldiers, with the troops, outside of Rabat Ammon, with all of the soldiers, and they were there in huts, obviously, and the general Yoav and all of the other officers, they were scattered in the field around Rabat Ammon. And Uriah said, while they're there with the ark and all of, the whole party is going on over there, and there is clear and present danger to the life of my fellow soldiers, I'm not going to go and eat and drink and have, and have fun with my wife. And, I'm swearing that I'm not doing that. So he basically wrote his death sentence by saying that, because this is not allowed. This is basically a mored b'malchut, is rebelling against the king, and the king have all the right to get rid of him, and the king exercised that right. The criticism, as we said, that he didn't do it straight. He didn't take him to court right there and then and said, hey, I told him to do A. He didn't do it. He said no, kill him, no problem. Any court would approve that kind of an execution without a problem. What he was afraid is, he was afraid that Uriah was one of the heroes, was one of the soldiers, I guess was liked by others, and it's not going to look good that he summoned someone to come, and the next day the guy finds himself at the end of a rope, high on a tree. That's not what. It wouldn't look good to the army who is in the middle of a battle. So David HaMelech decided that he's not going to do that. ויאמר דוד אל אוריה, שב בזה גם היום ומחר אשלחך. So David HaMelech, which is really an amazing way of governing, he decided to sort of eat his pride and say, you know what, let me sleep on it, stay here an extra day, maybe tomorrow your sense will come to you, your senses will be back, and you will, you'll think differently. So sit here today and tomorrow, the rest of the day and tomorrow I'm going to send you. And David thought maybe he will be able to convince him to go back to Bat Sheva. וישב אוריה בירושלים ביום ההוא ממחרת Uriah doesn't budge. Sit there in the palace, right outside. He ain't going home, and he's not listening. Vayikra lo David. David is making a third attempt. Or fourth attempt, I lost count already. Vayikra lo David, vayochal lefanav vayesht vayishakreu. So David HaMelech invites him for a meal the next day, and fed him very well, and he gave him drink, and he gave him a lot of wine, and he made him shikar, made him drunk, and hoping that in his stupor he's going to be able to send him to his wife, and he'll forget his disdain or his objection or the get or whatever went through Uriah's mind that made him not listen. So he got him drunk. That usually works, right? It didn't work here. ויצא בערב לשכב במשכבו עם עבדי אדוניו אל ביתו לא ירד. So he ate and he drank and he became drunk and he finished and he said thank you very much and he got out and he did not go home. He remained for an extra night with the officers and all of the other servants right outside of the palace. ואל ביתו לא ירד, and he did not go home. ויהי בבוקר. So David HaMelech, now he's making his move, and again, he's doing it in such a way that if David had some bad ideas or bad thoughts or ill intentions, he wouldn't have done it this way. What does he do? He writes instructions. He writes a letter to Yoav. In the letter, we will see in the next, he basically tells him to arrange for Uriah to go in the front line and die. That's what's written in the letter. And he hands this letter, sealed, to Uriah and tells him, go give it to Yoav. Uriah doesn't like the king, very easily could have looked in the letter and see what's written in there. If David HaMelech would want to be discreet about the plan, he would send him to someone else, with Uriah next to him or not. It doesn't matter. David HaMelech had no problems communicating with Yoav. He didn't need Uriah to do that. And here he's writing a letter and he's handing it to Uriah and tell him go give it to Yoav. What was he hoping? He was hoping, let's just see actually what he wrote in the letter, and then we'll see what he was hoping to accomplish. ויכתוב בספר לאמור, and he wrote in the letter, in the book, in the letter, he was writing to saying, Havu et Uriah el mul pnei milchama. Send Uriah to the front line. Uriah was talking like a real soldier, like a real dedicated, my soldiers are my friends, and my general is there at a war, and I'm not going to go to my wife. I'm, going to fight. So give it to him, Put him in the front line. In El Pnei Milchama Chazaka, where it's very, very fierce, where the war is, to the most dangerous location. Send him to the front line, not the front line that is, between the U.S. and Mexico. Send him to the front line, where the bullets are flying. And he writes in the letter to Yoav, and you will retreat behind him, and he's going to be left and maybe killed. And this is what he writes in the letter, and hands the letter to Uriah and says, hey fellow, go give it to your officer. And after this exchange that was very weird, and it was obvious that he wasn't listening, and David is trying to convince him to go to his wife, and he says, no. You would think that Uriah might take a peek at it. And the idea was that, yes, if he would take a peek at that and will decide, you know what, I'm out of here. I'm not interested in dying for this king or dying at all, and I'm just out of here and run away. That would be, as far as David is concerned, a very good outcome, because the get that he gave to the divorce papers he gave to Bat Sheva will be valid. They usually didn't use it, but they did use it when the husband disappeared. If the husband disappears, then, that's when they activate it and say, well, we need to use it, and the wife and the spouse is free. So that's what he's sending with Uriah, and to give it to Yoav, and we will see. I think it's 9:30 already, so we will see next time what Yoav does with it. I'll just give you a brief, preview. He basically sends him to the front line and make sure he doesn't make sure that he dies. He just sends him to the front line, and God makes sure that he dies. Yoav he doesn't understand what this instruction is. He doesn't know of anything that happened over there, and he doesn't know that Uriah is a dead man walking. He thought Uriah wants to fight. Okay, we'll put him. When I see David, I'll ask him what this instruction about retreating, and we'll see what that means. But let's just send him. So David HaMelech basically sends a letter and says, let's see, if the guy is smart, to look at the letter and runs away, that's good. If the guy is not smart and goes all the way and dies, that's good. And you know what, I'll give it's beyond me. I cannot control this whole story. The scandal is brewing. It's a big balagan. I don't know what will happen. Let God decide what will happen with this guy. Obviously, God can very easily make sure that in the front line he's not going to die. With the fact that he was sent to the front line does not mean a death sentence by God. So that's the plan. That's what will happen. We will see how it plays out next time. Thank you.